My name is Claire, and at 32, I've learned a painful lesson. Family doesn't always mean loyalty. Sometimes, the most effective way to respond to betrayal is to let those responsible face the fallout of their own actions. It all began at what was meant to be a joyful occasion. My younger sister Maris, aged 29, had just bought her first house with her husband Henry, and they were throwing a housewarming party. Maris had always been the favored child, marrying early, having 2 kids by 25, and convincing our parents she was flawless despite her string of poor financial choices. I, on the other hand, was the family's letdown in their eyes. Never mind that I had a thriving career as a financial advisor, owned my own home, and had worked tirelessly to buy a beautiful vacation cabin. They didn't care that I was content with my dog, Finn, or that I was self-sufficient. I arrived at the party with a fine bottle of wine and a generous gift card for Maris's new home, hoping for a pleasant evening. The party was in full swing with about 30 guests, family, friends, and neighbors. Maris greeted me warmly, pulling me into a hug and thanking me for coming. For a fleeting moment, I thought our relationship might be improving. I should have known better. An hour into the event, Maris clinked her glass to get everyone's attention. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she said, her voice dripping with the false warmth I'd come to recognize. "Henry and I are so grateful for your support as we begin this new chapter." Then her tone shifted. "Actually, there's something else I'd like to address while we're all gathered." She locked eyes with me and my stomach churned. "Claire, can you come up here for a moment?" The crowd parted as I approached, my parents standing beside her, their expressions hinting at trouble. The room grew quiet as Maris spoke again, her voice carrying to every corner. "Claire, you know how tough things have been for Henry and me financially, especially with the kids and the new mortgage." I nodded cautiously, unsure where this was headed but feeling uneasy. "Well," she continued, glancing at our parents, "we've discussed it as a family, and we think it would be incredibly kind of you to let us use your vacation cabin. It'd be perfect for making memories with the kids." Her words sounded like a decision already made, as if I'd agreed. But I hadn't. This was the first I'd heard of it. "Maris, I started, but Mom cut in, her smile cold. "We think you should just give it to Maris and Henry. It's the right thing for the family." The room was deathly silent. Every eye was on me, and I felt my face flush with embarrassment and anger. "You want me to hand over my vacation home?" I asked, incredulous. "It's not like you're using it properly," Dad said, his tone sharp, the same one he'd always used to dismiss me. "Vacation homes are for families. You just go there alone with that dog." "That dog has a name," I said, my voice rising, "and yes, I go there to unwind. It's my property, one I worked hard to buy." Maris let out a cruel laugh. "Come on, Claire, don't be so greedy. Think of my kids, your niece and nephew. They deserve those experiences." "They can have experiences at countless other vacation rentals," I replied, struggling to stay calm. "I'm not giving away my property." Mom's facade cracked. "You don't even have kids," she shouted, loud enough for everyone to hear. "What do you need a family vacation home for? Just keep wandering around with your dog and stop being so selfish." Her words stung, especially since they knew about my years-long struggle with infertility, a painful topic they seemed to care nothing about. Dad stepped forward, his face red with anger. "Your sister has children, real responsibilities. You're just a useless, childless burden, hogging resources that could help actual family members." The word childless hit like a punch. I'd heard Dad's harsh words before, but never so publicly, so viciously. The crowd shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke up. Maris smirked, clearly relishing the moment. "About time the family failure contributed something," she sneered. "Maybe this'll make you worth something." I stood there, trembling with fury and humiliation, as my family tore me apart in front of everyone. Some guests looked away, ashamed, while others watched with morbid curiosity. No one defended me. "I said no," I managed through gritted teeth. "It's my property, and I'm not giving it up." That's when Dad lost it. His hand flew up, striking my cheek with a sharp backhand that sent me stumbling. The sound echoed in the silent room, and then, in my horror, applause broke out. Not from everyone, some looked shocked, but enough to fill the room with the sound. Maris beamed as if she'd won a prize. Mom nodded approvingly. Dad adjusted his shirt as if he'd done something noble. I pressed my hand to my stinging cheek, staring at the people who were supposed to love me. The betrayal cut deeper than the physical pain. "Fine," I said, my voice eerily calm. "I'll remember this." I walked out, leaving behind the gift I'd brought and any hope I had for my family's loyalty. The drive home was a blur. Finn greeted me with his usual joy, and I buried my face in his fur, letting the tears fall. My cheek throbbed, my heart ached, and I felt more alone than ever. But as the shock faded, a cold, calculated resolve took its place. I'd always been the responsible one. While Maris made reckless financial choices, I'd quietly supported her. I co-signed her first car loan when her credit was shot. I lent her money for emergencies countless times. I even helped with the down payment on the house we'd just celebrated, though she swore me to secrecy. Most importantly, I'd been managing our parents' finances for 5 years, ever since Dad asked me to step in when Mom's condition had worsened, but she still had lucid days and appreciated my help. They trusted me completely with their financial lives. Maris had no idea. As a financial advisor, I know money is power, and power can be revoked as easily as it's given. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and started making calls. The first was to the bank holding Maris's mortgage, which I'd co-signed and partially funded. I told the loan officer that, due to recent family disputes involving financial coercion, I was worried about my liability as a co-signer and wanted to explore my options. "I understand, Ms. Thompson," the officer said. "You can't simply remove yourself as a co-signer, but you can request a review of the loan based on changed circumstances. We'd need to reassess whether the primary borrowers qualify on their own." "And if they don't?" I asked. "We'd explore modification options, but if no agreement is reached, the loan could be called in." Perfect. The second call was to relinquish my power of attorney over my parents' finances. I'd meticulously documented everything over the years, and what I found was troubling. Dad had been secretly funneling money to Maris, funds meant for Mom's medical care. The loans he gave Maris, totaling over $30,000, were never repaid. Worse, he'd opened credit accounts in Mom's name without her consent, exploiting her cognitive decline. I gathered screenshots, bank statements, and emails, all legally obtained while I was their financial agent, before stepping down. The third call was to Adult Protective Services. "I'd like to report suspected financial elder abuse," I told the intake worker. "I have evidence of someone draining funds from an elderly woman with memory issues, including using her identity to open credit accounts." I sent them everything. Proof of unauthorized transfers, credit applications in Mom's name, and documentation of her vulnerability. "This is serious," the worker said. "We'll launch an investigation immediately and freeze the accounts to prevent further abuse." The fourth call was to Maris's employer, a small family business where she worked as a bookkeeper. Her boss, Ms. Benton, was strict about financial integrity. Public records showed Maris had multiple recent judgments for unpaid debts, which she hadn't disclosed during hiring. I didn't accuse her. I simply asked Ms. Benton if she knew about the judgments, as they could affect Maris's bonding insurance, required for her role handling company finances. The fifth call was to the IRS. Dad's loans to Maris, which she never repaid, were considered taxable income if forgiven loans exceeded a certain threshold. If Maris hadn't reported them, it was tax evasion. I provided detailed records of every transfer and gift above the annual limit, all obtained legally as my parents' financial agent. The sixth call was to Child Protective Services. I'd never make false claims about child welfare, but Maris's public social media posts were concerning. Photos of her kids in unsafe situations, comments about leaving them alone, and mentions of using medication to make them sleep for her convenience. I compiled the screenshots and requested a wellness check, citing legitimate concerns for the children's safety. The final call was to Henry's employer, a construction firm with strict policies on domestic violence due to liability concerns. Without accusing Henry, I provided photos of my bruised face from Dad's assault, along with witness statements from party guests who were appalled by the incident. I let the company decide if the family dynamic aligned with their standards. Then I waited. It didn't take long. 3 days later, Maris called hysterical. "What did you do?" she screamed. "The bank is demanding the full loan balance in 30 days or they'll foreclose." "I withdrew as your co-signer," I said calmly. "It's my legal right." "You can't do this. We'll lose the house. You should have thought of that before you humiliated me and demanded my property." "Claire, please," she said, her tone shifting to fake sweetness. "I'm sorry about the party. Things got out of hand. But you can't punish my kids for this." "Your kids?" I replied. "The ones you wanted to make memories with? Maybe ask Dad where Mom's medical funds went." The line went silent. "What are you talking about?" Maris asked, her voice unsteady. "Adult Protective Services is looking into Dad's financial dealings," I said. "Stealing from someone with dementia is a serious crime." The next day, Dad called. "Claire, we need to talk," he said, trying to sound commanding but clearly panicked. "People are asking questions about Mom's accounts." "I'm sure they are," I said. "I turned over all the records to the authorities." "You had no right." "I had every right. You gave me power of attorney, remember? I'm legally obligated to protect Mom's interests." "Those were family loans." "They were thefts from a vulnerable adult," I corrected. "The police were very interested in the credit cards you opened in Mom's name without her consent." He went quiet. "What do you want?" he finally asked. "For you to face the consequences of your actions," I said, "just like you made me do at that party." The third blow came when Maris lost her job. Ms. Benton discovered not only the hidden judgments but also Maris's creative bookkeeping to cover her personal financial issues. Taking petty cash, even with plans to repay it, was still theft. The fourth blow was the IRS audit, which found Maris hadn't reported over $40,000 in forgiven loans and gifts over 3 years. The penalties and back taxes were steep, and her wages were garnished immediately. The fifth blow was CPS's wellness check, which uncovered concerning conditions requiring parenting classes and regular monitoring. Nothing endangered the kids outright, but it added stress to Maris and Henry's lives. Henry lost his job soon after as his employer deemed his association with domestic violence incidents too risky. 2 weeks later, my cousin Nina called. She'd been at the party but hadn't clapped, horrified by the scene. "Claire, I need to tell you something," she said, her voice shaky. "I should have spoken up sooner, but I was afraid. What happened at Maris's party wasn't spontaneous." My blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" "They planned it," Nina said. "I overheard Maris, your mom, and Dad talking before the party. Maris said she'd been trying to get your cabin for months. She thought you were too selfish to give it up, so they planned to pressure you publicly to make you cave." The betrayal cut deeper than I'd imagined. "They set me up?" "Maris said if they shamed you in front of everyone, you'd be too embarrassed to say no," Nina continued. "She laughed about it, Claire. She said you always fold under pressure and would probably hand over the keys to avoid a scene." I felt sick. The entire event had been a calculated ambush. "There's more," Nina said. "After you left, Maris bragged about softening you up with sob stories about money troubles. She'd been tracking every time you helped her financially, planning to use it as proof you always give in to family needs." "For what?" I asked. "She was going to sue you if public shaming didn't work," Nina said. "She thought she could convince a judge to force you to hand over the cabin as part of a family support obligation, using your history of helping her as evidence." The audacity was staggering. Maris had been building a legal case to take my property, weaponizing my kindness. "Why tell me now?" I asked. "Because Maris called me yesterday," Nina said. She's desperate, Claire. She's talking about suing you for ruining her family. She thinks you're acting out of spite, not because she and your parents broke the law. She's been asking about your income, job, and habits, trying to turn mutual friends against you, calling you a heartless monster who's hurting her kids. Typical Maris, playing the victim while dodging accountability, but now I had a heads up. Nina, if she contacts you again, record the conversation, I said. Can you do that? I think so. But why? Because Maris is about to learn I'm better at this game than she thinks. After hanging up, I dug deeper into Maris's social media. It was a goldmine of contradictions. While she'd been crying poor to me and our parents, she was posting about fancy dinners, new clothes, and weekend trips, posted during the same time she'd begged me for emergency loans. She'd even shared texts mocking me for being too soft to stop helping her. I saved everything and built a file. Then I did something I'd never imagined. I launched a social media campaign. I posted a detailed account of the party, including photos of my bruised face and statements from guests who were appalled by Dad's actions. I didn't need to exaggerate. The truth was damning enough. I included Maris's own posts showing her lavish lifestyle while claiming poverty, plus her cruel comments about exploiting those who helped her. Her own words exposed her. The post exploded in our social circles. Dozens of people shared their own stories of Maris's lies, unpaid debts, and manipulative tactics. Party guests admitted they'd felt uneasy but didn't know how to intervene. Maris's neighbors and Henry's former colleagues revealed she'd borrowed money with fake stories about medical or car issues, owing money all over town. The campaign also created a public record of Maris's behavior, making any lawsuit she filed difficult to win. Her own posts and pattern of manipulation were undeniable. 3 days later, Maris showed up at my workplace, pacing in the lobby and yelling at my assistant. I was in a meeting but saw her through the glass. She looked disheveled, desperate. "Reschedule my 3 p.m., I told my client. "Family emergency." Maris started shouting the moment I entered the lobby. "How dare you post that trash about me online? You're ruining my life." "Your life ruined itself," I said calmly, aware my colleagues were watching. "I just shared the truth. You posted private messages. That's illegal." "I posted what you made public on your own social media," I corrected. "Nothing was private." Her face burned with rage. "You're spiteful and everyone sees it now. No one thinks you're the victim." "The comments on my post say otherwise," I replied. "People have been sharing their own stories about your behavior. You turned everyone against me. You did that yourself, Maris. Your actions spoke louder than I ever could." Then she made a mistake. She pulled out her phone and started recording, hoping to catch me saying something incriminating. "Say it again," she demanded, holding up the phone. "Tell everyone how you deliberately destroyed an innocent family because you're a bitter, childless woman who hates seeing others happy." I smiled at her camera. "I stopped enabling financial abuse and reported crimes to the authorities. If you want to record this, let's get the facts straight." I pulled out my own phone and started recording. "Maris, are you denying you and our parents plan to shame me into giving you my property?" "That's not... Are you denying Dad stole from Mom's medical fund to give you money?" "He was helping family." "Are you denying you lied about your finances while borrowing from multiple people?" "Everyone struggles. Are you denying you clapped when Dad hit me?" Her face paled. She'd started recording to trap me, but instead she'd created evidence against herself. "You can't prove any of that," she stammered. "I can," I said, still recording. "I have bank records, social media posts, witness statements, and now this conversation where you haven't denied anything." Realizing her mistake, Maris stopped recording and lunged for my phone. I stepped back. "Don't touch me," I said loudly. "You've already been part of one assault. I won't let you try another." Security arrived. My assistant had called them when Maris started yelling. As they escorted her out, she turned back with one last threat. "This isn't over, Claire. I'll make sure everyone knows who you really are." "They already do," I replied. "That's your problem." Security footage of our confrontation leaked online, showing Maris's aggression and her failure to deny my accusations. It painted a clear picture of who the real aggressor was. The fallout was swift. Maris's remaining friends abandoned her. Family members who'd stayed neutral picked a side, mine. Henry's parents, who'd taken them in, started questioning his choice of wife. But Maris wasn't done. A week later, my lawyer called. "Claire, I got an interesting letter," he said. "Your sister hired an attorney. They're threatening to sue you for defamation, emotional distress, and something called tortious interference with family relationships." I almost laughed. "She's suing me for telling the truth?" "They're demanding money, a public apology, and that you stop investigating their finances," he said. "But their case is weak. Everything you've shared is factual or based on documented experiences. Truth is a complete defense against defamation. The emotional distress claim won't hold up. They orchestrated a public attack on you, and tortious interference with family isn't a valid claim here. You can't be sued for exposing crimes just because they're family." He paused. "They're trying to scare you into settling to avoid the hassle of a lawsuit." "They picked the wrong person to bully," I said. "File a countersuit." Within 6 weeks, the dominoes fell. Maris and Henry faced foreclosure, bankruptcy, tax liens, job losses, and CPS oversight. Dad was under investigation for elder abuse and fraud, with charges looming. Mom was safe in a care facility, her finances protected, though she was heartbroken by Dad's betrayal. I was at my vacation cabin with Finn, sipping wine and watching the sunset over the mountains. I'd started spending time with Luke, a kind man from my hiking group who admired my independence. Maris, Dad, and even relatives who'd watched my humiliation tried calling, pleading for family unity and forgiveness. I blocked them all. I kept in touch only with Mom, visiting her regularly. On her good days, she was grateful I'd protected her from Dad's abuse, though it pained her to see his true nature. "I always knew you were the strong one," she said during one visit. "I just wish I'd seen the truth sooner." 3 months after the party, Maris showed up at my house. She looked exhausted, driving a beat-up car, likely all they could afford after repossession. "Claire, please," she said softly. "We need to talk." "I have nothing to say," I replied, starting to close the door. "Wait," she said, pushing against it. "I know you're angry, but my kids don't deserve this. They could end up homeless." "Your kids are innocent," I agreed. "That's why CPS is ensuring they're safe with parents who can provide for them." "The parenting classes are humiliating," she said, tears falling. "Henry can't find work because of his record. We're losing everything." "You lost everything when you decided to attack me for not giving you my property," I said. "It was just words, Claire. People say things when they're upset." "Dad hit me," I snapped, "and you clapped. You stood there cheering while your father assaulted me for not giving you something that wasn't yours." Maris looked down. "I know that was wrong." "No," I said firmly, "you don't get to minimize it. You planned my humiliation. You called me a failure. You agreed when Dad called me a childless burden. You clapped when he hit me, and now you want my help because the consequences are hard." "What can I do to fix this?" she begged. "Nothing," I said after a long pause. "You can't undo your words, the humiliation, or the assault. You showed me who you really are." "But we're family." "Family doesn't treat each other the way you treated me," I said. "Family doesn't gang up, attack, or applaud when someone's hurt." "Claire, I'm begging you." "Are you begging now?" I asked. "Where was that humility when you demanded my cabin? Where was your concern for family when you mocked me in front of 30 people? Maris sobbed on my doorstep. Part of me felt a pang for the sister I once knew, before she became entitled and cruel. But the larger part remembered standing in that room, hand on my burning cheek as people clapped at my pain. "I'm sorry," she said through tears. "You're sorry you're facing consequences," I replied. "You're sorry your plan failed. You're sorry you're losing your house, job, and lifestyle. But are you sorry for how you treated me? For exploiting my kindness? For cheering when Dad called me a childless waste?" She looked up, and her eyes told me the truth. She was sorry, but only because she'd lost.